Hi, and welcome from your ITC Geeks. My name's Trapper Hallam, and in this video, we're going to talk about how to make a Teams meeting. All right, let's take a look. Okay, so you want to make a Teams meeting for your class of students. Well, before we do that, we need to consider the chat and how it functions. With the recent change, now the chat is not available to students after the meeting as we used to do it. So we have to change the way that we do this if we want them to have access to the meeting after, or we can add them to the chat afterwards. So I have a video that I'm going to point out right here. I'm going to put it up in the corner and you can go check that out in great detail, and I'll show you how to add their emails quickly using PowerSchool. So in this video, we'll kind of jump through that. So if you want to see that, make sure you check out that video and subscribe if you want to see more of that information coming in. So for this video though, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and show you how to do it in Outlook, because that's now our preferred method. And then I'll show you how to do it in Schoology and Teams. Just remember, when you do it in Schoology and in Teams, you're going to have to add the participants after to the chat if you want them to have it. Now, if you don't care that they use the chat after the meeting, then you don't need to worry about this, and the process is that much simpler. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and check that out, and we'll take a look at Outlook to start. Okay, so we've got Outlook open. Here it is. We're going to go ahead and move over to our calendar at this point so we can schedule a meeting. I'm going to click on the calendar. That should pop one up for us pretty quickly here. And once we're in there, we're going to go ahead and find where we want to put our meeting. Now, do understand that when you make this meeting, it will stick in your calendar right there. And because it's a Teams meeting, it will always be available. So you don't have to make one on each day that you'd like to hold a meeting. This one will last forever until you'd like to make a new meeting, right? So at the semester, or if this meeting gets old, or if you want to clear the chat out. So you don't have to do a reoccurring meeting. So let's go ahead and pick right about now. So I'm going to double click on my calendar, and that's going to open up my dialog box. Once that does, I'm going to set up some pre-information for you real quick, and then I'll come right back. Okay, so I've titled my meeting ITC Geeks class meeting. I told him to ignore this because I'm going to email it to the other ITC Geeks. I don't want him to get confused. And I've confirmed that my date and time are good because it really doesn't matter. The one thing that you want to make sure that you do before you go too much further is click on this little button right here that says Teams Meeting. That's going to enable the link so that you actually have a virtual meeting. Okay, now that we've got that, we need to add our students in, right? We're pretending to add students. This is the part where you would go to PowerSchool, you'd find the email dump, you would collect that, copy it, and then paste that in here. So I'm going to pretend I've already done that. So I'm going to click on Invite Attendees, and I'm going to Control V. Now when I do that, you'll see that they populate and are automatically entered. So you can see the other ITC Geeks there. You would do this with your students, and all 30 some of your students would populate into the meeting itself. The reason for this is because I want them to have that meeting chat after the meeting's over. If you don't worry about that part. They'll just not be able to chat back into that chat after you're done. Okay, so now that we've got that, let's go ahead and send this. If we go back in, we should be able to see that there is the meeting link. Okay, so right here, this is what you'd want to copy and share with your students, but because you added them in Outlook, they should also have an email notification of it, but most likely you're going to post this link in Schoology, and that's what you'd want to do. But you do have a backup in their email. Now, before we go any further, of utmost importance, we need to set up our meeting details, which have changed quite a bit from the first time that we started making these videos. So let's go ahead and pause now, talk about the meeting details, and then we'll go back and show you how to make a meeting in Schoology and Teams calendar, and then we'll be done. Now we're ready to look at those meeting options. So let's go ahead and scroll over and click on meeting options for our meeting, and that's going to open up our familiar box, dialog box with a bunch of choices. And you'll notice now that it's changed and added a few more for there, or a few more for you to control. So we'll go one by one and kind of tell you which ones we prefer that you set up, but you always have the choice depending on how you like your meetings. Okay, so the first setting we're going to talk about is who can bypass the lobby. But that changes a little bit. Look at all the choices that you have. But because you've invited all of your students, there's an option down here. It says people that I invite, they can jump right in past the lobby because they have to log in with their UCS credentials, which is going to let them in. Or you can go the old-fashioned method and choose only me, which means that you're still approving them to come into your meeting. So That's up to you and how you set it up and how you go about it. So I'm going to pick only me because I like having the lobby and the control of who's actually in my meeting, even though I invited all my students. So because we turned that one on, you can't let callers bypass the lobby. The next option is announce when callers join or leave. And so this really just puts a message inside of your chat that shows you when they've come in and when they left, if that's important to you. But don't forget, you get all of that information in the attendance report at the end. So I might turn this one off just because it removes another distraction. Who can present? So again, this is a choice to you. If you'd like all of your students with the ability to present and share the screen, you can, but the problem with that is they can boot you from sharing your screen while you're sharing it. So in this case, I generally choose only me for this one. If you had another teacher in there that was a presenter, maybe you would say specific people and then you can type their name in there as well. But I'm gonna choose only me. Allow mic for attendees, probably a good idea so they can chat with you, but if you have an unruly group of second graders where you really just wanna read your book to them, maybe you turn that off. All of these settings can be changed in the meeting after it's already running. So don't worry about these being permanent. So for this one, I'm gonna allow them to have their mics, and additionally, I'm gonna allow them to have their cameras, but you get choice of both in the pre-meeting. Record automatically. Now this is one that's new that I generally like to turn on because now I can forget about having to worry about turning the recording on and just go about my meeting, and it'll automatically record every time you start that meeting up again. So every meeting session will be recorded automatically. I like that one. All right, allow meeting chat. So this is after, or this controls after what happens after we invited everybody to the chat. So I know that sounds confusing. We invited them in so they could use the chat after the meeting. But once we do that, we still have control of that. So in here, if I say meeting only, after I've already given them the ability to chat after, I can disable that. So I get the choice to allow them to have it or not allow them to have it with this because I've invited them. Enable, disable, so I generally allow them to use the chat, so I just leave that as enabled. But that's a preference to you. Allow reactions. Allow reactions would fall under a little heading at the top that allows them to put smileys, hearts, some basic reactions. But the trouble with this is the hand raising feature is also there. So I generally leave this on because I like to use the hand raising feature in the Teams meeting. So I'm going to leave that there. And then the CART captions, this is new. I actually haven't tested it yet, but I'm guessing it turns on captions for everyone within the meeting. It was an option to turn on individually, but this may be an option to turn it on for everyone throughout the whole meeting. So that might be a good idea, but I haven't tested that yet. So once you've made all of your meeting option choices, go ahead and click save. And with that, our meeting is set up. So we'll take a break here, and then we'll jump over and show you how to do this in Schoology and Teams. But remember, the chat will be disabled unless you manually enter all of those students. Okay, let's take a look. Now we're back here. We're in Schoology this time, and to make a meeting in Schoology, it's really quick and easy. We're gonna go ahead and go into the course. It doesn't matter which one you go into. We're gonna scroll down the side here, and we're gonna find Teams meetings down towards the bottom. So let's go ahead and click that. It should initiate the process for us to start a Teams meeting through Schoology. Again, this is just a link. It's not a Schoology thing. It's Teams, a link from Schoology to Teams. So we're going to just go ahead and click sign in. It should pre-register us because we're signed in, or it may make us sign in again. But we'll give it a second here, and there we go. So now we're signed in, and we'll give it just another minute, and there we go. Now we notice that the box has changed and it says create a meeting link. We're going to go ahead and click that, and it's going to pop up with a very basic header. Now remember, this heading will be for the top of your meeting. So it will show, it won't show in your calendar, and it won't necessarily show in the, it might show in the link, but it will show definitely at the top of the meeting when you're in it. So you'll probably want to title this appropriately. So we'll say class meeting. So once we have that, we can click create. And we're just about done with this setup once it gives us our meeting. The one thing that we're going to want to do though is, just like we did in the Outlook part, we're going to want to come down here to meeting options and set those up appropriately. And then after that, you're all done. You can right click on this little link here and copy that link. But once you leave this page, that link has to be stored somewhere because it's gone forever, and you'll have to repeat that very short process. So make sure that you copy that link and then you paste it appropriately. wherever you do, right? Most likely in Schoology. I think we're good there, so let's go ahead and take a look at how to make it in Teams really quickly. Now we're going to do this again, last time in Teams. So open up Teams, and then once you do, navigate over to Calendar. So go ahead and find that tab on the left, click Calendar, and you'll end up with a calendar that looks very similar to your Outlook. Actually, this whole process will be very similar to what we did in Outlook. But what you won't be able to do is the email dump in here. That's only working in Outlook right now. So with that said, let's go ahead and start. There's two ways that we can make a meeting in here. One, we can double click on the space that we like, or two, we can come up here under New Meeting and click the drop down box and it'll say Schedule a Meeting. So I'm going to choose that way. I'm going to go ahead and click Schedule a Meeting, and then you'll see this looks very similar to what we saw. So in here, we're going to go ahead and paste in our title. And then all of our other information really doesn't matter again because these meetings are always alive. It doesn't matter what date and time that it started on. We don't have to enter much of this information. We don't need a channel or any of that stuff. Really, all we need to do is add at least one attendant for this because otherwise it won't activate the Teams link. So we're going to go ahead and add Courtney to this as part of our our class. You could put your whole class in there one by one individually. You can't email dump it, but you could send it to yourself as another way to do it so you don't have to send it to a student. But I'm going to go ahead and send it to Courtney. So when I click send here, that should create the meeting and add a link for us. There we go. And so now I'm going to double click on it and it should open up the box again, and this time it should give me, there it is, at the bottom left corner, the link to join this particular meeting, which then you can share, right? So remember the other video at the beginning. I'll put a link here again to show you how to go through that in detail about adding your students to a meeting if you've already had it created and they can't see the chat, or you want to see how to do the email dump out of PowerSchool. I'll put that link up here again for you as well. All right, with that done, you should be pretty versed in how to make a Teams meeting in Outlook, Schoology, and in Teams, however you need it to be done. All right, so hopefully you learned a little something, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.